How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America, and I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. We got to talk about the cabinet picks. There are some good ones, some questionable ones, some clunkers. What is interesting to me is the spin. First everyone was they were assuring me Donald Trump was doing four-dimensional chess. And they no, there's no four-dimensional chess. And now people are like, it doesn't matter anyway, particularly because of the labor secretary pick. The Treasury secretary pick is an interesting one to me. The Treasury secretary pick essentially waged a campaign for it behind the scenes. And he is actually someone who worked for George Soros. Now, if you're a longtime listener of this program, I am on record saying that George Soros is to the right what the Koch brothers are to the left, and often overstated boogeyman who everybody blames everything on. And in this case, from what I have been very reliably told, Scott Bessent did work for George Soros, worked directly for George Soros, but also his tenure at Soros's investment firm is overstated by people. I personally just have fun needling all the people who complain about Soros all the time that Trump is now hiring a guy who worked for Soros and maintains ties to Soros. But if you know anything about George Soros, not his son Alex, who's very much progressive, George Soros may not be with us on social and cultural issues, but George Soros is very much a libertarian when it comes to money. Scott Bessent is also a big fundraiser in 2000 for Al Gore. He's raised money for Hillary Clinton, John Kerry. He's raised money for Barack Obama. He is openly gay. He'd be the first openly gay Treasury Secretary. A strong advocate for gay rights, for marriage equality. He is married. They do have children. They live in Charleston, South Carolina. He's 62 years old. What I am told by free marketeers is that there is no better person to be Treasury Secretary at this time in the United States. Friends of mine, deeply evangelical Christians in the financial investment world, say this is a strong pick, that Scott Bessent is a good pick. And not only is he a good pick, but he's a pick that will undermine and work against the ideas of tariffs, knowing that they're bad, which works for me. The weird one for me is what happened on Friday when every news outlet in America seems was saying my friend Kelly Loeffler would be picked as the Ag Secretary. Reported it on this program, did an entire monologue about her and Doug Collins, who will be the highly qualified Veterans Affairs Secretary. And then when it was made formal by Trump on Saturday, it was Brooke Rollins, or Sunday, I guess it was. Brooke Rollins is actually a friend of mine. Brooke is going to be great, too. Brooke was the head of the Texas Public Policy Foundation for a while, the best think tank in the country, and she'll be the Ag Secretary. Kelly Loeffler not. Now, I texted former Senator Loeffler on Friday, tell her congratulations, and never heard back. And then yesterday was texting a friend with the Trump transition team, and he says the problem is all the conflicts. Not personal conflicts or things like that, but so the Loefflers own the New York Stock Exchange. The Ag Secretary oversees commodities trading, and the levels of conflicts that would arise would be too great. They couldn't find a way around it. That was their explanation. It sounds legit, just given The Agriculture Department is in charge of commodities trading, and there would be conflicts of interest there. That seems to be it. Was assured that they want to find a place for her in the administration, but that one, there would be too many conflicts, and so they went with Brooke Rollins at the end. The lawyers couldn't figure out a way. That's what I'm told. I'll go with it unless someone tells me something else, but it was credible. The bad pick is Chavez DeRimmer. Congresswoman Chavez DeRimmer from Oregon will be the labor secretary. Now, before you tell me, and this is the spin now, originally it was Donald Trump is doing 4D chess with Matt Gaetz until he ditched Matt Gaetz less than a week after his nomination for Pam Bondi, who you don't need 4D chess for. She's highly qualified and will be great. But with Chavez DeRimmer, she's such a terrible pick. All the people who said Donald Trump was engaged in 4D chess are now saying, it doesn't matter. He's in charge. Who cares? Except there's a problem with that. One, Chavez DeRimmer and all these other picks will be in the presidential line of succession. But two, she is a uniquely terrible pick. And in fact, I will predict she's going to get more Democrat votes than Republican votes for labor secretary. Chavez DeRimmer is one of the most progressive Republicans in Washington, D.C. She has repeatedly been the sole Republican to sponsor the DREAM Act with Democrats. She supports amnesty for illegal immigrants. This matters because she'll be in charge of labor regulations relating to the use of illegal immigrants in the workforce. And she is a big proponent of Washington turning a blind eye towards companies using illegal aliens. Not only that, the National Education Association and Randy Weingarten from the American Federation of Teachers are out singing her praises. She is the only Republican, again, she's the only Republican to support the DREAM Act. She's the only Republican to oppose school choice in the House of Representatives. The labor secretary nominee, Chavez DeRimmer, is deeply, deeply pro-union and anti-parent. She opposes school choice. Now, you could say that's the Department of Education. That's fine. But considering the labor unions are supporting her and the teachers unions are supporting her, you should raise an eyebrow about this. So she supports amnesty for illegal aliens. She opposes school choice. She supports government unionization. She not only supports government unionization, that is, government employees unionizing, she is one of a very few members of Congress, including among Democrats, who support the right of government employees to strike. Even most Democrats don't support the right of government employees to go on strike. She does. Not only does she support the right of government employees to go on strike, she actually supports the PRO Act. The PRO Act is a massive progressive plan to force every employee of every private sector business in this country to be in a union. It would roll back right-to-work laws in states. Right-to-work laws, you know, the states that are the most economically prosperous are right-to-work states. They don't force individuals into unions. She actually wants to get rid of right-to-work status and force employees into unions in the private sector. Doesn't want to give them a choice, wants to force them in there. This is who Donald Trump wants as his labor secretary. You can't tell me this doesn't matter, because when Trump was president the first time and then when Biden was president, it's the labor secretary who signed the rules for mandatory COVID vaccines for employees. It's the labor secretary who did that. It's the labor secretary whose regulations and signature ordered the closure of businesses during COVID. It's the labor secretary who did these things. The labor secretary is a powerful position in Washington, D.C. And handing the labor secretary over to someone as far left as Chavez DeRimmer, even Republican senators are upset about it. You know who's happy? Patty Murray, the Democratic senator from Washington State, is a big fan. Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers is a big fan. The head of the Teamsters is a big fan. The head of the AFL-CIO is a big fan. And the head of the SEIU is a big fan. The head of the government, the Postal Workers Union, is a big fan. That should be a big red flag for everybody else. It's a terrible pick. I thought Kennedy was bad. She's worse. And I'm sure there will be someone there. So, it is 40 justice to get Kennedy through. No, she's just a bad pick. Hegseth, I actually continue to think is a good pick, and the police report on him is somewhat overstated. So here are the facts as I now understand them on this arrest report. Hegseth, by the way, it is a big red flag. He didn't report this to the Trump transition team, and he's going to have to explain himself on this. But according to the data, according to the report itself, Hegseth was drunk at an event out west, hitting on a bunch of women. This particular woman was defending the other women. She went with Pete Hegseth to his room. He, again, drunk. She sober. Her husband and kids were there with her. Goes to the room. They have sex. 4 days later, she says it was an assault, but then doesn't want to press charges. There's something off there. She was sober. He was drunk. This happened. She filed a police report and then refused to press charges. There's something off there. He needs to explain this, but I suspect this is explainable. He's an interesting pick. Marco Rubio is a great pick for Secretary of State. Pam Bondi is a great pick for Attorney General. We got some great picks, but some of them undeniably clunkers. Let me go. Nate's been waiting very patiently here. Let me get Nate in here into this conversation. Nate, welcome to the Eric Erickson Show. How are you?
Good. I'm one of those elite gays, except on the conservative side here.
So you're like Scott Best. You're like the Secretary of Treasury now.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to talk about. I've met him, and he's a good man. And yes, he did work for Soros, but I'm tired of that. People acting like that's disqualifying. He woke up in 2016, like many billionaires did, like Bill Ackman and others, and was horrified what he saw. And he left working for Soros and then started All Seasons Press, which is a conservative publishing house, because he was concerned about the lack of conservative voices in the media. So I think you need to pay attention to people's actions, not just what their past is, but what are they doing now and in the future. So I just want to point that out for everybody is, he's putting his money where his mouth is. He started a conservative publishing house, and he's spreading the conservative message and taking action.
Yeah, okay. So, and to this point, I think it's worth saying again, and I'm not sure if you heard me say this, but several friends of mine who are very evangelical, conservative Christians say he is the best person for the job. They're involved in the finance sector, and of all the choices they say who could have been Secretary of Treasury, he's the best, and that people on the right, when they see the Soros stuff, they shouldn't hold it over his head because he actually is someone who has evolved over time. And that he's very, very pro-free market. He's very, very staunchly the United States should have the strongest economy in the world, and he's very anti-China, from what I've been told, which is also very good.
Agreed. I think the experience working in that under Soros and in that market gives him a great understanding of global financial systems, and will make him a great asset to the Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, look, I'm of all the people who could have been there, look, the friends I know and respect saying that he's the best guy, I'm going to go with them. And you're right that, I've said this before, that it's like the Koch brothers on the left. We vilify Soros, and he's become the boogeyman for all sorts of stuff. But to some degree, I think that allows us a way to escape being accountable for our own competence or incompetence in the same way on the left. Instead of having to say we screwed stuff up, they can say, oh, well, the Koch brothers did it. We shouldn't be hiding behind George Soros all the time to get out of our own failures. But, I mean, people are going to do it. I do have to say, though, Nate, I do find it funny that there has been such vocal criticism of the swamp, the establishment, and Donald Trump's going to purge the swamp and all this stuff. It is actually kind of funny that he settled on a guy who did work for George Soros. There is a level of humorous irony in there, even if I don't think we should hold that against him.
Agreed. Which makes it even better.
Yeah, there you go. Look, I appreciate the phone call, Nate. You're right. It is. It's going to be a very interesting setup. By the way, the Republicans in the Senate are very much in favor of this guy as Treasury Secretary, and several of them breathed a sigh of relief, I'm told, when he put Howard Lutnick in Commerce, because Lutnick is a big advocate of tariffs, and Bessent is not. I'm also told that Bessent actually has Trump's ear behind the scenes because Trump likes that he's not a showboat. A lot of these guys want to be in front of cameras, and they want to be in front of microphones. And this guy is not a showboat. He's very quiet. He only speaks when he feels like he needs to speak. And so Trump seems very comfortable with him for Treasury Secretary. But, man, y'all, this Labor Secretary between Kennedy and Chavez de Rimmer, we got some clunkers. in the Trump administration. But, the spin has gone from 4D chess to it doesn't matter, except they're in the presidential line of succession, and they do have legislative powers themselves beyond those delegated to the president from Congress. Breaking news. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. There is breaking news. Jack Smith has officially filed to dismiss the case of United States of America versus Donald J. Trump. As a result of the election held on November 5, 2024, the defendant Donald J. Trump will be inaugurated as president on January 20th, 2025. It has long been the position of the Department of Justice that the United States Constitution forbids the federal indictment and subsequent criminal prosecution of a sitting president. But the department and the country have never faced the circumstance here, where a federal indictment against a private citizen has been returned by a grand jury and a criminal prosecution is already underway when the defendant is elected president. Confronted with the unprecedented situation, the special counsel's office consulted with the department's Office of Legal Counsel, whose interpretation of constitutional issues, such as those raised here, is binding on department prosecutors. After careful consideration, the department has determined that the Office of Legal Counsel's prior opinions concerning the Constitution's prohibition on federal indictment and prosecution of a sitting president apply to this situation, and that as a result, this prosecution must be dismissed before the defendant is inaugurated. That is signed by Jack Smith himself, special counsel. The government requesting that under the federal rules of criminal procedure, the case be dismissed without prejudice of the superseding indictment. Now, as a lawyer, I can tell you the dismissal without prejudice of the superseding indictment means they want the ability to bring it back after he's gone again. If it's dismissed with prejudice, it means they can never bring it up again. By bringing it as dismissal without prejudice of the superseding indictment, it means they want to be able to bring it back up later. It's a legal sleight of hand he's using. But the breaking news happening right now, Jack Smith filing for dismissal of the cases against Donald Trump. Now, I need to call your attention to Old Glory Bank. They are my bank. I have a checking account with them. I have a savings account with them. If you're a business and you're looking for a bank that you can do business with that's not going to cancel you because you're conservative, Old Glory Bank was started by conservatives for conservatives, and they are totally willing to have your bank, have your back. They would love your business. In fact, I've now sent 6 businesses, was 5, now it's 6 different businesses to Old Glory Bank, and all of them have loved dealing with them. They can do loans. If you're an individual, you can do mortgages. You can do car loans. If you're a business, you can do business loans. They are great for businesses, great for individuals. All you have to do is go to oldglorybank.com. Oldglorybank.com. You can fill out the entirety of your application online and get started online. Oldglorybank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply, and I have beaten CNN on the breaking news. I want you to know they're just now cutting in. Hello, friends. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. If you are just tuning in, for the record, I want it known, and it's all thanks to my team, particularly Charlie, who flagged it for me early. I beat the news networks in delivering you the breaking news. This is why you should be listening to me live across America instead of waiting for the podcast. Hint, hint. Well, also why I should be on more radio stations. Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, has dismissed the case against Donald Trump. Now, what is notable and what's going to probably get glossed over by a lot of people when they read his dismissal, and by the way, they say they are dismissing it because of historic precedent from the Department of Justice and the advice from the Office of Legal Counsel at the DOJ that because a sitting president cannot be prosecuted, the incoming president should not be prosecuted by the federal government. He's dismissing without prejudice. That's what he's asking for, a dismissal without prejudice. Now, if you're not a lawyer, I happen to be one, where I used to be. I'm in the 12-step program. There are 2 phrases, with prejudice and without prejudice. If you dismiss with prejudice, means you can never, ever, ever bring the case back. If you dismiss without prejudice, it means you can bring it back at a later date. And in fact, the language in the Jack Smith dismissal is to dismiss without prejudice to the underlying indictment. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it means that once Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States, that the Department of Justice would have the power, since there's already an indictment filed. So we've hit the statute of limitations freezes now because of the indictment. You got to be indicted before the statute of limitations. You don't have to be brought to trial before the statute of limitations. So because he's been indicted, there's no longer a statute of limitations issue. And the result is that the government can bring back the indictment at a later date. I don't think that'll actually happen, but that's where we're headed. There happens to be breaking news right now. In addition to that story, the Israeli cabinet has announced that they will vote on a ceasefire over Lebanon tomorrow. All indications are that Israel is going to agree to a ceasefire with Hezbollah that has been negotiated by the United States and France. One of the conditions was the French to improve their relations with Israel. It's kind of a weird fluke. The U.S. and France help fund the Lebanese army that is not Hezbollah. And France, Lebanon used to be part of French territory, has maintained long ties to Lebanon. And the French and the Americans together were involved in this. So 2 bits of breaking news happening right now as we're live on the program. Jack Smith dismisses without prejudice the case against Trump, meaning he can be resurrected after he leaves office. And the Israeli cabinet is set to vote for a ceasefire plan tomorrow with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, we can move on to what I was actually going to talk about now that we've gotten rid of all the breaking news. There is a story in the Times of London. Donald Trump is planning an executive order that would lead to the removal of all transgender members of the United States military, defense sources say. The order could come on his first day back in the White House, January 20th, 2025. There are believed to be about 15,000 active service personnel who are transgender. They would be medically discharged, which would determine that they were unfit to serve. It would also lead to a ban on trans people joining the military and would come at a time when almost all branches of the American Armed Forces are failing to meet recruiting targets. See how they change and shift in their game of 3-card Monte. Why is he doing this? We need all the recruits we can get. Well, you're not getting recruits in the American military because Obama politicized it. And what people are yelling about now is that somehow Donald Trump is going to politicize the military. All Donald Trump is doing is depoliticizing the military from when Barack Obama was president. Now, I know this will come as a rude awakening to people who believe history began 5 minutes ago. But Barack Obama viewed the military essentially as no longer a fighting force because there would be no more war. Remember, when Barack Obama got elected, he said, this is when the earth began to heal. We are the change we were waiting for.
Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
And that's what he believed, and that's what he argued, and he believed that peace would come not through the military, but through talks and diplomacy. And so the military instead, the left has perpetuated this notion that the military was a force for changing the culture, that the military integrated, and that forced integration into the United States. Actually, it was Democratic President Woodrow Wilson who forcefully segregated the military. It was war and World War II and soldiers coming back to this country and facing the adversity and segregation that really pushed the country to desegregate. It wasn't just by virtue of the military, but the left and Barack Obama have this idea that the military should be used to advance civil justice reforms in the United States, that they used integration in this country as an example, that they needed more gay people in the military. They needed more black leaders in the military. And in fact, Barack Obama, behind the scenes, politicized the military such that in the Marine Corps in particular, They decided they needed to advance promotions based on skin color, that they needed to desegregate the Marines, they claimed, and in so doing, they needed to advance black personnel. It didn't work out well for them, frankly. The Marines, to this day, have largely rejected race-based promotions, but they've tried with the Air Force, they've tried with the Navy, they've tried with the Army. The Marines are the only one at this point that are meeting recruiting goals, and that's not a secret because the Marines are the only ones not woke. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force go through DEI training now. Again, it is the left that has politicized the military, and all Donald Trump wants to do is get rid of the politicization, and he's now being accused of politicizing the military by getting rid of all the woke progressive crap that's there. There is a reason to get rid of trans soldiers. I support it, not because I oppose transgenderism. I support Donald Trump's ban for a very practical reason. Talk to the soldiers on the front lines. Trans soldiers can't go to war. I bet you haven't heard this. You're not going to get it from ABC, CBS, or NBC, or even CNN where they're belly aching about this. Trans soldiers can't go to war. Can't be on the front lines. So they're taking positions that other people might serve because they can't go to the front lines because of the medicines, the drugs. I've heard this now from leaders within the military, not just from activists, but from actual members of the military tell me one of the things that never gets reported is that transgender soldiers, because of the hormones they take, they're not going to be stationed on the front lines. So they're taking spots that other people might fill while also ensuring they never actually go to the front lines, and the government covers the costs of their treatment. It is members of the military themselves. It is generals, lieutenants, colonels, all of whom are very upset with the woke transitioning of the military by Obama and by Biden because it never has made sense. It has never made sense to the fact that you can't actually put these people on front lines given the costs and treatments that they require to maintain their transitions in life. Again, I'm not an expert, but when I have a general tell me this, I tend to pay attention to the general who's deeply frustrated with the politicization of the Democrats and the military. And this is not a pro-Trump general that I've talked to. Donald Trump wants to reform the military, and it's not just the trans issue. Our military is badly underperforming. Over the weekend, I got an email. Let me see if I can find this for you. Where is this email over the weekend? It is wild how much the American military is falling behind. The American military is unable to build ships. The American military is behind in development of the next generation of fighter jets. The F-35 program is badly flawed. We don't have the ability to maintain those aircraft regularly or reliably. We do not have the ability to build the new submarine class that the Navy wants. We can't build ships, and in fact, the Navy has actually just decided to cancel its multi-purpose ship because the military got it in its head that you could have one plane for all branches of the military and one ship that could be served multi-purposes of the military, and they can't maintain the ship. It constantly breaks down. The F-35 fighter jet doesn't actually serve the purposes that it needs. They can't keep the skin on the plane, let alone keep it in the air. It may be highly advanced technologically, but it's served as a boondoggle in the military, and this is where Eisenhower's warning about the military-industrial complex comes in. What a lot of people have interpreted Eisenhower's remarks to be about was that we would essentially be in perpetual war so that the military-industrial complex could constantly make revenue. That's not actually what he meant. What Eisenhower actually meant was that the military and industry together would set policies, and in that collaboration between industry and military, we would be doing what's good for the industry ultimately and not what's good for the military. And that is exactly what's happened to us as we've misinterpreted what Eisenhower was warning about. We are subsidizing Boeing and Lockheed. We're not actually building world-class fighter jets because they look, by all intents and purposes, to be world-class, but we can't keep them in the air. We're building world-class nuclear attack submarines, but we can't keep them under the water without them leaking. We're building world-class ships, but we can't keep them in the water without sinking. So what good are they? Meanwhile, China continues to advance its technology. China continues to outpace us in ship construction, and China is beginning to figure out nuclear-powered submarines. I didn't realize how far behind they were with nuclear power when it comes to their Navy, but they're catching up quick. The dictates of our military are not dictates based on the wars we might face, but based on what the industrial complex wants to build. And part of the industrial complex has gotten so progressive that they're willing to introduce woke politics into the military, and that is putting us behind. Donald Trump wants to clean that up. If Pete Hegseth can do it, I say let him. We're falling further and further behind on technology, and China is beginning to catch up quick. And it is a dangerous, dangerous situation for us to be in, where the Chinese are catching up very fast to us on technologies that they should not be anywhere near us catching up on. The Pentagon has become extremely dysfunctional. The United States is confronting the most serious and challenging threats since the end of World War II, and our Pentagon is just spending money, making no sense of what to do with it. And if you want perspective from a budgetary perspective, our gross domestic product during the Korean War was 14% GDP. In 1968, it was 9.3 GDP. At the peak of Reagan rebuilding our military, it was 6.2%, and now it's less than 3%, and we're not getting any quality from that 3%. We need a bigger defense budget, but we need better quality too. We're not getting it. We're instead getting woke politics. Now, Hillsdale College has ideas on combating wokeness in government. They've got great ideas on advancing conservatism in the country, and they've got truth when it comes to the American economy and the American founding and American history, and they would love to have you build a relationship with them. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com, watch the video about Hillsdale College. You can understand how unique it is. Since the 1800s, Hillsdale College has been advancing a mission of educated Americans wherever they are. That's why they give so much content for free, including in Primus, which is a fantastic publication that comes to your mailbox completely for free, which I've been getting for about 20 years now. You go to ericforhillsdale.com, you sign up for Primus, you watch the video, you learn what makes Hillsdale so unique. Great educational institution. Every kid there, they don't get federal money, so they have way more flexibility in how they do things, and every kid's allowed a job to be able to help pay for college. They learn great skills. They learn great character. I've got a lot of friends from Hillsdale College, and they're just a leg up on everybody. To find out more, go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. Start a relationship with Hillsdale College today, and don't forget to sign up for Primus. Get it to your mailbox. Y'all, have I got some data for you? So there's a new gun range near me called Steel Forest. Went and checked it out on Saturday. They're closed on Sunday. I'm a little disappointed by that. My son and I went on Saturday. We played golf, and then we went over and checked out the gun range. We got a family membership to it. My wife and daughter both love to shoot guns. My daughter and my son are actually great shots. And now Gallup has some data out I was very interested in. It turns out there are more Republicans who are female and own guns than there are Democratic men who own guns. So more Republican women are gun owners than Democratic men are gun owners, which is kind of remarkable, actually. In fact, there are more independent women, non-political women who own guns than Democratic men, which is kind of wild to me that we're in this sort of situation that it just no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. There are more Republican women own guns than Democratic men. Independent women are just slightly less than Democratic men own guns. Democratic women are the least likely group of people in America to own guns. 20% of women overall are gun owners. 43% of men are gun owners. 60% of Republican men own guns. 39% of independent men own guns. 29% of Democratic men own guns. 33% of Republican women own guns. 18% of independent women own guns, and only 12% of Democratic women own guns. What's interesting is that the number of Republican men who own guns has gone up, and the number for Republican women has gone up. But the number has it stayed steady for independent women, slight increase. It's gone down for Democratic women. It's gone down for Democratic men. Just kind of and it's gone down for independent men as well a little bit. What I find most interested in the data, though, is one of the reasons that the number of Republican men who own guns has gone up is because the number of independent men who now identify as Republican has gone up. It's a pretty significant increase, 14% increase for women owning guns, 1% overall for the country, 5% increase for women overall, and a 2% decline overall in men owning guns in this country. But if you're Republican, you're more likely to be a gun owner. And what's so wild is now there are like 3 guns for every person in this country in private ownership. Just wild to me. That's why you're never going to get rid of guns in this country. And people should learn how to use them instead of trying to get rid of them.